Hello, golfers. Have you ever been stuck with respect to two choices regarding your setup or your swing? The best way for a serious golfer to decide which one is more viable is with the help of a golf science consultant. A golf science consultant can help you troubleshoot some aspects of the swing that might not be immediately apparent. And today's post will explain something even as simple as how far to stand from the ball with a little more scientific approach. Should you be standing closer to the ball? Should you be further away? Are you just right? It is generally accepted that the golfer's distance from the ball is an important factor in the setup and affects the swing and ball contact. Typically, correct distance from the ball is supposed to help to set up a golfer in a so called athletic posture, which is a rather subjective term. Then there are the results from not standing at the right distance, which have been understood experientially by generations of golfers. For instance, standing too close to the ball is said to cause early extension of the hips and torso, or it might result in a fat shot, while standing too far away can result in no hand action, changing swing planes, loss of balance, or a slice depending on who's explaining it. So, how might one understand distance from the ball in a slightly more scientific manner? By looking through a lot of research to understand the consequences of specific actions. Distance from the ball is typically assessed as the distance between the ball to the golfer's toes or the golfer's body, which is the red line here, and it is known to be related to the height of the hands above the ground, which is the yellow line in this picture. Perhaps the most important purpose of getting the distance from the ball correct is to manage the distance and position of the upper arms with respect to the upper body. Some golfers have the upper arms very far from the torso, while some have the upper arms hanging extremely close to the body. And while there is no direct proof for which is better, here are some points to consider. From a biomechanics perspective, the pectoralis major has a larger moment arm as the angle between the upper arm and the torso increases, allowing more force to be applied to the shoulder to maintain the shoulder inflection, which is seen by the upper arm being further away from the upper body. But what does a golfer need excessive flexion for? Might it disconnect the upper arm from the torso and thus affect the efficient transfer of energy up the system, which we are told takes place from the pelvis to the shoulders and then out to the arms and the club head? What about the increased moment of inertia of the arm being further from the body, which would tend to slow down the club? From a motor control perspective, a lot of research shows that within a movement, one joint, typically the most proximal, uses muscle action while others adjust their motion based on what the lead joint is doing. Could there be some disruption in that relationship, especially of the pelvis and the shoulder, with a greater angle between the upper arm and the body? Would the wrists freewheel more and cause inconsistencies close to impact when the upper arms are not well supported by the torso? Additionally, the pectoralis major muscles of both sides are activated to a much greater extent with the arms out in front of the body or flexed and require muscle control by the central nervous system, giving it one extra task to manage within an already complex movement. And what about the anatomy of the shoulder joint? When the arms are stretched out an excessive distance from the torso, the elbows become very straight or extended, which positions the bones of the elbow into maximum congruence, known as a close packed position, and the wrists into an open packed or neutral position. This makes the elbow more difficult to bend and the wrists less stable. So, elbow flexion or bend during both the backswing and follow through would be complicated, and the wrists might be able to freewheel more, which might result in some directional issues of the club face close to impact. For most golfers, then, it makes scientific sense to position the upper arms as close to the chest as possible in order for an easy transfer of energy up the body and to have greater control of the club head close to impact. This might seem a simple, even trivial example, but as there is unlikely to ever be adequate research on the smaller nuances of golf, it becomes vital to be able to justify, in scientific terms, why each position and movement in the golf swing is good or not so good, regardless of whether that information is ever passed on to the golfer.